are the dark children spawn of the incubus. Depths of the nighttime are the lands we command. We hold the life power, try not to anger us. Tread soft the fine line, there is death near at hand.
Is it better to be feared or loved? For love is an illusion of the senses, and fear is a truth of the soul. Conrad Kurz, Primarch of the 8th Legion. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Lost Transmissions, a Battlefleet Gothic podcast set in the Age of Darkness. I am here with our Master Excruciator, Austin.
Hooray!
And today, he may not think himself a Master Excruciator, but he's certainly excruciated me plenty of times in the Void.
Certainly, if you've listened to me talk long enough, you'll think it's excruciating.
Yes, well, we all have our talents.
Indeed. And it can't always be murder.
Yeah. So, as it's probably aware, or probably obvious, we're going to talk about Night Lords today. Night Lords are the other sneaky legion, but who are mostly known for not fighting fair at all.
It's true. Fair fights are for suckers, and if the Night Lords are fighting you, you deserve everything you get according to them.
Yes, it's a good it's a good caveat to put at the end, because they have definitely skinned babies.
Yeah.
They're not nice people. Anyway,
if you were ever wondering what side the bad guys were on in the Horus Heresy, the Night Lords. Just wherever they are, that is where the bad guys are.
Yeah. If you are fighting and you think it all good and just, and suddenly you look over and there's some dudes in blue armor with bat wings on their helmets,
and they're not trying to murder you, you're the bad guy.
You're the bad guys. So, we'll get right into it. The Night Lords, killers and murderers to a man, the Night Lords delight in sowing despair. Enemy fleets beware, for there are monsters between the stars. Their Gloriana is the Nightfall. The Night Lord's special rule is called Nowhere to Hide. Never a legion to fight fair, the Night Lords had no qualms about butchering an enemy crew to disable a ship, and were adept at seeking out those most weakened in battle and finishing the job with ruthless precision. So the Night Lord's rule actually has two parts to it. The first part is that ships with a Starday's crew do not have to pass a leadership check to fire on a crippled ship if it is not the closest target. So normally, if you want to shoot at something in Battlefleet Gothic that isn't the closest target, maybe there's escorts right in front of you, but there's a crippled battleship way further in the back that's still handing out 60-centimeter lance shots that you don't want to have to deal with, then you would have to take a leadership check to fire at that battleship instead of the escorts. The Night Lords don't have to, provided that their target is in fact crippled. But the second part of their rule is that whenever you launch a hit-and-run attack from a Night Lord's Astartes vessel, then instead of inflicting a regular critical hit, you can elect to subtract a point of leadership from the target vessel per successful hit-and-run attack. So if you have a Styx carrier and you launch all 6 bays with Dreadclaws, and all 6 Dreadclaws make it onto a target, then instead of doing a critical hit with those Dreadclaws, you can subtract 6 points of leadership from the target for the rest of the turn. Or you can mix and match. You can do 3 points of leadership and 3 critical hits. I don't know how you managed to get so lucky that that all 6 made it through, but
Yeah, we don't know how that happens. But if it did, it would be awesome. And this is really a fun trick. Well, really, both are fun tricks, but I like the hit and run because there's a lot of times where you do a critical hit and it doesn't work out for you, right? Like you're on a ship's port side, you have something come in and do a critical hit with like your teleport hit and run or whatever, and you disable the ship's starboard weapons. oh great, that's not important right now. Like I'm getting beat to crap.
Yay.
But what would be nice is giving that ship a -1 to its leadership, so it would have a harder time trying to brace or lock onto you. And the Night Lords can play those games real well. And it is cumulative. So you start throwing, 3 or 4 Thunderhawks or whatever at somebody, and they all, you drop the guy's leadership by 4. He's just not doing anything.
Yeah.
And then, of
And
course,
maybe
like
he's
Steven,
touching blast markers. Or,
yeah,
you've got an Emperor's Children ship close by as well. Then surprisingly, the Night Lords are really good team players.
yeah, who would have thought? And I also really like their automatically being able to target a ship even when it's not the closest thing. Because a lot of times, experienced BFG players, what they'll do is, they'll run in with a pair of cruisers and, a couple of lunars, whatever. They're both essentially the same thing to the opponent. So you fire at the closest one because it's closest, and that ship gets beat to crap. And then the line sort of shimmies, and suddenly the fresh ship is in front, the crippled ship is in back, and you're not like degrading their firepower anymore. You got to kind of start over again. The Night Lords don't care about those shenanigans. They're going to murder the crippled ship anyway.
Yep.
And that's brilliant because you only get full victory points if the thing is dead. If the thing is crippled and yet manages to flee the field, not so good.
Yeah, less good anyway.
Certainly less good.
Yep. Many a time have I damaged one of Austin's ships really well, and he just played the Squadron Conga line and shielded that crippled ship.
Oh yeah, my light cruisers love playing that game. Because you get a solid whack on a light cruiser, it'll become crippled, but for a Dauntless, that still means 2 lances are coming out. So, Not really a loss. Just swap it for a fresh one, continue murdering.
Mm-hmm. And, I think we've probably mentioned crippled enough times, but I don't think we've ever actually explained what it means when a ship is crippled.
I really hope we have, because that's really important and kind of basic, but let's do it again, just in case, because, hey, we forgot to explain the rules of the game for quite a while.
Yeah. Oops.
Professionals here. What crippling does, if you're playing by the Blue Book, crippling, it only happens to capital ships, that's the first caveat, and it starts when you take half damage. So your 8-point cruiser suffers 4 points of damage, it becomes crippled. I believe in the 2010 FAQ, that changes to more than 50% damage, and then you become crippled. But either way, once you are crippled, everything is halved, and not everything. So your speed is reduced by 5 centimeters. That's the first thing that happens to you.
Because your engines are on fire.
Because your engines are on fire, or 3/4 of the guys shoveling nuclear coal into it are dead. Various bad things. The next thing that happens is, because you're not shoveling in enough nuclear coal, you don't have a lot of power. So your shields are halved, your turrets are halved, and all your weapons are halved, which isn't good. It is rounded up, so if you have an odd number of weapons, it doesn't hurt quite as badly. So things like the Dauntless with 3 prow lances, it goes to 2 instead of its weapons batteries, which 4 drop down to 2. But it really ruins your day, right? It makes it a little hard to get away because you're a little bit slower. But more importantly, suddenly you've lost the fight, essentially. If you're fighting a cruiser with another cruiser and yours gets crippled, you're not dead. You probably have a long way to go still before you're officially going to be dead.
You're not dead, but you sure wish you were.
Certainly lost. You've lost, and you need to get away.
Mm-hmm. And crippled ships give up portions of their total victory points at the end of the game.
Mm-hmm. But, interestingly enough, you can run with a crippled ship, and that's fine. It doesn't give up as many victory points as you would if the ship had been fully destroyed. So even if you're playing kind of one-off games for Battlefleet Gothic, a lot of the time you just, say, all right, I've been beat to crap. It's not super useful on the field now anyway, so we're going to try and run. Which is fun, because not a lot of games reward you for fleeing the field with parts of your force.
Mm-hmm. Now, although Austin said, and it is true, that once you're crippled, you've lost the fight. There are still times, particularly when you've squadroned ships up, when a crippled ship can continue to be a huge pain in the ass. Because take the Gothic, for instance, with its 4 lances. If you cripple it, it's only firing 2 lances. But 2 lances is still the quote-unquote average number of lances on any other ship with lances. The Murder has 2 lances in the prow. The Hades has 2 lances on its dorsal fin.
Lunar's got a couple. Yeah.
Lunar's got a couple of lances.
So it's not dead by any means. It's still useful.
Yes. A crippled ship, which you now cannot finish killing because it's squadroned up with a friend, is now just ha, just plinking you with 2 lances every shooting phase. And I've seen it happen plenty of times where a ship gets crippled, kind of shimmies to the back of the line where it's not in the main line of fire, and still gets kills.
Yeah, it kind of gets forgotten about as your opponent's trying to fight the things that are actually doing a lot of damage. And next thing you know, it's those 2 lances from a locked-on but crippled Gothic that polish off your battleship. Not that I'm
and there are a few things as frustrating. There's few things as frustrating as playing through the game, crippling something, continuing the game to the end, losing, and then looking and being like, hey, wait a second, didn't I kill that thing? No,
it disengaged or was hiding on the other side of a dust cloud because you managed to not be able to hit it when you were trying desperately to finish it off because you failed that leadership check and ended up having to blow your load on some dumb squadron of escorts. Not so the Night Lords. You will get your man.
Indeed. Okay, so the Gloriana, the Night Lord's Gloriana is the Nightfall. It is 420 points and is based off of the Emperor, which Imperial players will know and love as their big baby mothership ordnance monster.
Yep.
So, Battleship 12, as always. The Nightfall is not the fastest Gloriana. It clocks in at 15 centimeters. 45-degree turns, 4 shields, 5 up armor. It lacks the armored prow. And 5 turrets, so it's well defended from enemy ordnance. It has 2 Firepower 6 60-centimeter weapons batteries on its port and starboard sides. It has a dorsal weapons battery at the same distance, but 5, and a prow bombardment cannon, 5 at 60 centimeters. And then the cream of the crop is its port and starboard launch bays, both launching 4 squadrons of Thunderhawks.
Yeah, when you take the Nightfall, you're not really here for the weapons. I mean, it's not a bad setup. You can throw 11 weapons battery out outside, 5 bombardment cannon. But there's a lot of ships that can do that. That shouldn't get you up in the morning. But 8 Thunderhawks is a bad time for pretty much anybody.
Yep. And they're not that fast, but they go 40 centimeters a turn, so
yeah,
they're faster than torpedoes. Well, no, they're not.
No,
torpedoes
they're not.
Go 60.
Yeah, they do. Math is hard.
Math is hard. So what do you do with those Thunderhawks? Because it is a Night Lord's vessel, which means that you can elect to perform those hit-and-run attacks and impose -1 penalties. But each successful hit-and-run attack launched from the Nightfall imposes a permanent -1 modifier to the target vessel, in addition to any other damage. So, with the Nightfall, you can have the best of both worlds. You can do a critical hit and disable starboard weapons, and inflict a -1 to their leadership, which, unlike regular old garden market Night Lords, is permanent.
Yeah, and the effect is cumulative. So not only does it stack with any other leadership shenanigans that's going on, it stacks with itself. So, you launch 8 Thunderhawks at a thing, maybe a fun, leadership 10, the enemy flagship. It gets a couple of Thunderhawks. Doesn't matter, you've got 6 more. You do 6 hit and run attacks. Suddenly, it's a leadership 4 flagship for the rest of the game.
Yep. We're not saying the captain is dead, but he sure wishes he was.
Yeah, he is flayed, sewn into his command throne, and probably on every Vox and pick feed of the ship.
It's a bad time.
It's a bad time.
Bad time.
No one
Now,
is happy.
normally they say that in space no one can hear you scream, but they can.
The Night Lords have perfected the technology of letting your screams be heard in space.
Yep, they can hear you.
You thought they weren't inventive, but oh boy, aren't they.
Yep. So, what happens if you bring the Night Lord, or the Nightfall, in, say, Exterminatus? Well, like its sister ship, the Ironblood, the Nightfall counts as an exterminator without contributing to the number of exterminators in your fleet. Now, normally the Emperor can't be an exterminator because you actually have to replace a prow. Oh wait, no, it has a prow weapons battery. Never mind. Forget what I just said.
It's fine. There is one downside to using the Nightfall kind of narratively, and that is, of course, that it was blown up in about the middle of the heresy.
Johnson.
Yeah. So, we recommend you start your campaign at the beginning of the Thramas Crusade and just don't let Lionel Johnson blow it up.
Yep.
How hard can that be, really?
I mean, it's fine. It's only a 15-centimeter speed ship. Shouldn't be that hard to catch, right?
But do you want to catch it? Do you?
Boy. If you do play the Emperor in a narrative setting, though, and you're using the narrative Gloriana rules, then you have a 24-point hull ship, or 24 hull point ship to look forward to, with 24 weapons batteries per side, 15 dorsal weapons batteries, and 15 bombardment cannons.
And can we also say 10 turrets?
10 turrets.
Don't bother having fighter escort for it. It'll be fine.
It will be fine, yeah. And 8 squadrons per launch bay.
Which is just kind of unfathomably rude, really, when you
it's
stop
here
to
for
think
a
about
good
it.
time and a long time.
Yeah, because you're not going to be able to do anything to it, because you're going to have nothing but Leadership 2 ships from all the Thunderhawks boarding you constantly.
Now, speaking of your leadership as it pertains to a Gloriana-class battleship, the Gloriana's narrative gameplay have a special rule called Overwhelming Might. And I don't remember if we've gone over this before, but we're going to talk about it again.
Yeah, I think we have, but hit it again. It's important.
To even be in the shadow of a Gloriana is to shake the nerve of a hostile crew, and many captains know that to stray too close is to court instant death. At the start of its turn, any enemy ship or squadron within 15 centimeters of a Gloriana must take a command check. If that check has failed, the ship/squadron must move its full distance to maneuver as far away from the Gloriana as it can. So say you've worked up your nerve. You're like, I'm gonna go get the Nightfall. I'm ready. Here we go. Let's do it. Everybody's made their oaths or made whatever sacrifices they needed to, and they get up there, and you take a few points of leadership getting up there, but you're there. You're ready. Guns are charged. And then you fail your leadership check.
And then you run.
And now you have to run away.
Which is just how the Night Lords like you.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I should hit it again, is the carrier capacity rule. Actually, no. We don't need to mess with that. I take it back.
Okay. I'm just Forget you heard anything.
You heard nothing. I'm not even going to ask Jesse to edit this part out, guys, because we're open.
Yep. It'll just be a.
Yeah, I got all
Easter
excited
egg
thinking,
for
an
later.
Easter egg.
A preview.
We've talked about
But we
this
can
before,
talk
it's
about
fine.
a different rule for the Glorianas, since the Nightfall is the first Gloriana we've talked about that has quote-unquote narrative restrictions, which is to say if you play after the Thramas Crusade, don't bring it because it's spinning space junk. The Glorianas have a rule called Pride of the Legion. Glorianas represent the might of the Legion and do not steer from the fight. Their loss is a catastrophic blow. So if you're playing the Thramas Crusade, and Lionel Johnson does get all up in your business with maybe the Invincible Reason or any number of other Dark Age ships that he has at his disposal, a Gloriana may only disengage by leaving a table edge. So if you're crippled and everything's on fire and everyone's having a bad time, you can't just turn off all the lights and go home. You have to sail off of an edge, which is difficult, considering that the Nightfall only has 15 centimeters of movement.
Yeah, it's a hard time. My advice is just don't get blown up. Like, don't need to leave the table. Be a hero.
Additionally, if a Gloriana is destroyed, the opposing player automatically gains 1,000 victory points.
And again, that's on top of actually destroying the damn thing.
Yes.
So you get more victory points for destroying a Gloriana than you do in most games, just full stop.
Uh-huh. And if you somehow manage to still hold the field, if your fleet is still around after managing to destroy a Gloriana, and you hold the field and therefore the Hulk, it's worth an additional 1,000 victory points.
Yeah, so, we had these mainly for the poor bastards who, being heroes, decide, yeah, no, boy, like, bring your Gloriana. Like, I don't have one, but, like, that doesn't bother me. Let's go for it. Because, one, you're all heroes for doing it, showing up.
In the sky, you might say.
Indeed. And then, if you actually do destroy that Gloriana, that's about 23 to 2,500 points to you if you hold the field. We think you just deserve the victory.
Everything is horrible, but at least you won.
In the 5,000 survivors of your 1.2 million man fleet will no doubt rejoice.
Yes, and maybe go on to captain ships of their own, mostly because all the other officers are dead.
That acting 5th lieutenant getting his own ship, being a hero.
Congratulations. You're a captain now. Enjoy this firestorm.
Aww.
Aww. Yay, 1 shield, 1 hull point. But 90 degrees of turn. The Emperor giveth and the Emperor taketh away.
With explosions and fire.
Would you like a shout out on our podcast? Maybe discounts on our Teespring store? Maybe you'd like to vote for upcoming Heresy grad school topics? Hang out in a private Discord server? Or maybe even just getting a fun podcast sticker? If you're interested in any of that, consider becoming a patron. Patreon funds help for server costs and allows us to make cool content for you to enjoy. Patronage also helps us pay for projects such as our Nova Open Charitable Foundation Army The Honored, an Ultramarine Zone Mortalis force that will be up for charity raffle coming this year. If you're interested in getting in on the action, consider becoming a patron today at patreon.com/RR30K podcast. Thank you. A big shout out to all our July patrons, starting with our Praetor tier, Alex Self, Chris Mack, Jacob Dillon, Gardner.Tree of Woe, Joe from Music City Heresy, Josh Phillips, Matthew Boyce, Mr. Baldwick, and Nicholas Quenga. On to our Centurion tier, we have Andrew N., Angry Boy, John Christensen, M. Tanzer, Mark Henry, Minis by Applesauce, Scott LeMay, and Black Label Painting. And on to our Sergeant tier, we have Aaron Maynard, Duncan, Emily O'Hare, Garrett Lowe, and Travis Smith. Thank you all so much for your support.
So, let's say, you're not going to bring a Gloriana to this fight because you're a gentleman. What sort of battleship should you take as a Night Lord? And we thought about this for a while. We probably spent 10 minutes before the episode talking about what ships we would like for Night Lords, because neither of us play a Night Lord's fleet. And we settled on the Apocalypse.
Sweet, sweet Apocalypse.
Which was fun, because while we think it's very both thematic and useful for Night Lords, it's not a ship that in kind of regular Battlefleet Gothic people like. And there's a reason for it. We'll get to it in a second. So it's 15 centimeter speed, 4 shields, 5 up, 6 up armor, 4 turrets, kind of your basic battleship setup. And then it has port and starboard lance batteries that are 30 centimeter firepower 6, which is atrocious. Like 6 lances out of side is going to give someone a bad time. It's got a dorsal weaponry.
That's even ignoring being locked on.
Yeah. It's got a dorsal weapons battery, 60 centimeters, firepower 6, that goes left, front, right. So that's what you're using to bat down the shields, and then your 6 lances do damage. And then it's got prow torpedoes for strength 9. But where it gets interesting is that if you lock on with an Apocalypse, you can elect to increase the range of its lances to 60 centimeters for that shooting phase. However, if you do that, the ship suffers an immediate thruster damage critical hit, which is minus 5 centimeters to your speed. I'm sorry, minus 10 centimeters to your speed, and you take a point of damage. And
remember that it's already a 15 centimeter speed ship.
Yes, so it essentially becomes a station. Like it becomes very slow until you fix it. And you are going to have
you've done it with blast markers, you're just not going to move.
Yes. So the trick is have a lot, like don't do this when you're crippled, right? But if you're rolling 10 or 11 dice to fix crippling hits, it's early game, you've got plenty of shields, why not? And throw a 60 centimeter lance out there. But that is one of the reasons why in kind of regular Battlefleet Gothic, people don't like to bring it. And the fluff reason for this is they're a precursor to the Retribution. So they assume. And just when you have that funky technology in 30K and 40K, it's going to be better than normal. The problem is, in this instance, that the lasers are better than normal, but the engines aren't. It's pretty much what it comes down to.
The lasers are basically hooked up to the same power grid that the engines are.
Yes, so everything runs off, the engine's power plant. And, if this was the 20th millennium,
breaker, I guess.
Yeah, if this was the 20th millennium, the circuit breakers would work, the engine would be cold fusion, and these lasers would be shooting at 60 centimeters all the time. However, 10,000 years later, we just have some incense and essential oils instead of circuit breakers, and firing them at 60 centimeter range and waking up, the extra fancy targeting systems that let them hit that long kind of overtax your guys shoveling nuclear coal into the reactor.
Sometimes they explode and die, but it's not like the Night Lords care.
Exactly. But we really like this ship because if you're taking it in a normal sort of fleet, is kind of the summation of it. You don't really by the time you're trying to run down ships and all of this, it doesn't work, right? You've already taken damage, right? You don't want to do it and then risk not passing the order to shoot at the farthest thing, right? Because you gotta pick that. Hey, I'm going to 60 centimeter range for shooting. Once you do the orders, right? So you pass that lock-on order, and then you say, I'm going to keep 30, or no, I'm going to go to 60. So you do that, and then in the shooting phase, when you go out to hit that ship that's running with 2 hull points left at 50 centimeters, and you fail that leadership, you've damaged yourself for no reason. Night Lords don't care. Night Lords don't care, and 6 locked-on lances with a 6 weapons battery chaser is going to kill that crippled ship.
Mm-hmm. There's no getting around it. They gonna die.
I mean, having said, if you say that when you're about to roll, you will whiff with everything.
Yes,
but
whatever you do, don't give the dice a reason to hate you.
but
Do not tempt them.
if we squint and only look at the math sideways, damn near a guaranteed kill, or as close as you're going to get in Battlefleet Heresy anyway. So we like it a lot for them. It's a fun ship.
It's not my favorite battleship, which is the Desolator, but it does the job.
Yeah, honorable mention also should probably go to the Oberon, which we talked about in the Space Wolves episode, because it's got a couple of 60-centimeter lances and weapons batteries, but also comes with launch bays, so you can get that sweet assault boat Thunderhawk hit and run.
Uh-huh. And it bears noting that the hit and run rule doesn't only apply to assault boats. If you do a teleport attack, you can still do the same thing.
Yep, and that'll be arguably more useful in the moment, because if you're doing that hit and run, it's going to be in the end phase. They're obviously right next to you and don't have shields. Mm-hmm. So they're obviously going to want to be on an order real bad next turn, be it brace for impact or lock on. And if you can drop that leadership by one, oh no, boss. Like, you're staying around, you're having a bad time.
Oh no. Yeah. It's it's fun. You're going to notice that a lot of the ships that we talk about on this episode in the context of the Night Lords all have one thing in common, and that's 60-centimeter lances.
Yes,
which are the executioner's weapon. Yeah,
that's how you murder folk at long range. Mm-hmm. So the next one we're going to talk about is the Hades heavy cruiser. This one,
it's my downright favorite ship.
All right,
I love
it. You want to talk about it? You want to talk about it?
Sure, I'll talk about it.
I'll talk
about the Hades all day. So the Hades, at first glance, looks like a murder. It is 30 points more. It's a Hades heavy cruiser at 200 points. Has 10 weapons batteries on both sides at a respectable 45 centimeters. It has a prow lance battery, 2 of them, at 60 centimeters. And the nice little cherry on top is dorsal lance battery at 60 centimeters. The Hades heavy cruiser might be, point for point, the best single cruiser in the game. It's fast. It goes 25 centimeters. It doesn't have fancy armored prow, but, like, who cares? Because it's going to be fighting at long range the whole time. The Hades cruiser can put, at the beginning of the game, 4 lances onto a target by zeroing in those dorsal weapons out forward and then putting its prow weapons on top of it. And 4 lances at any point in time is nothing to sneeze at. Mm-hmm. Because that is a battleship's worth of lances.
It is, and it's also a really great format for the Night Lord's kind of execution, right? It's 25 centimeters, it's fast, it's kind of a pursuit predator. And once it's facing you, you got those 4 lances. So if you're trying to run and it decides to chase you, you're just going to get shot to shit if there's nothing there to kind of draw its fire. And if you're a Night Lord's Hades, nothing is going to draw your fire.
Yep. And 10 weapons batteries at 45 centimeters means that you can chip away at any other target running a beam of you before you actually get in close and dump all those shots onto them, and then finish them off with, again, the dorsal lance batteries.
Mm-hmm. They shoot left, front, right, so you jump 10 weapons battery on something, and then blast a couple of lances at it to finish it off. It is a fun ship. I wouldn't say it's the best ship point for point in the cruiser class, but you do love a Hades, and I do hate yours, so there's something going there.
She's a classy lady.
She
and a
is.
Rude bitch.
God, that's so true. It's so very true. But yeah, they're a fun ship. What else? Then the Cardinal, which we swear has been here the whole time.
Yes. The Cardinal is the ship beside you. It is the ship behind you. The Cardinal will gnaw on your bones.
Indeed.
Yes. Now, a brief note on the Cardinal before we go into it. Keen observers will see that the Cardinal looks a lot like the Acheron. And we've gotten a lot of questions since the inception of the rules. Hey, why isn't the Acheron in the game? And it's because the Acheron wasn't invented yet. I'll die on this hill. So you get the Cardinal. Be happy. It's got torpedoes.
It's true. We did science on it.
Mm-hmm.
And by science, I mean historical research. It's kind of funny how many of the ancient chaos ships from Battlefleet Gothic are only 4 millennia old.
Yeah.
That's not ancient in Imperial standards. It's like last Tuesday.
Yeah. 4,000 years ago, that was, it was last week. Time is both fake and very real.
That's true.
But anyway, the Cardinal Heavy Cruiser. It fulfills the same role as the Acheron, which is to say that among the heavy cruisers, it is the sniper. It's the heavy fire support ship. Standard chaos loadout, 25 centimeters of speed, 5 up armor. It's got the customary 3 turrets of a heavy cruiser. On its port and lance batteries, port and starboard lance batteries at 45 centimeters each with firepower 2. It has a dorsal weapons battery at 60 centimeters, firepower 6. And interestingly enough, it is one of the only Chaos ships that has torpedoes, at least one of the only Chaos cruisers that has torpedoes. It fires 6 torpedoes out of the front with the standard, out-of-the-box torpedoes, 30 centimeters.
Mm-hmm. Now, it is a little undergunned, in my opinion. Just as somebody who played the Imperial Navy in regular Battlefleet Gothic, if I have port and starboard lances, and that's my only port and starboard weapon, there needs to be 4 of them, because that's what a Gothic has.
Mm-hmm.
But they are longer range than a Gothic at 45 centimeters. And the dorsal weapons battery can, fling onto a side. This is not a ship that you want in the middle of the action. This is a ship you want on the side of the action. Because throwing out 6 weapons battery, 2 lances on a side isn't bad. The problem, of course, is the dorsal weapons battery is left, front, right, so you've got to kind of pick a direction and go with it.
Mm-hmm.
But as sort of a flanking, slashing ship, it does really well because it is fast. It's got 3 turrets, which is a little more than normal for a cruiser. And those prow torpedoes, man, if you get on the end of any battle line, fire it off. Hit the first ship, that didn't work. Well, just hit the second ship, it'll be fine.
Yeah. The Cardinal is it's kind of a weird stepchild because it has torpedoes instead of more weapons batteries. That's what the Acheron originally had. I believe it had another 6 weapons batteries. So you could reliably knock down somebody's shields at that range and then pull off a couple of hull points with the lances. But it means that the Cardinal, compared to the Acheron, actually has better close-range defense. If something is sneaking up on the Cardinal or has gotten through a screen and the Cardinal knows, well, I'm going to have to fight that ship in a second, it can turn to and then hit them with torpedoes, which is always a daunting task to suddenly have to stare down torpedoes.
It's a sphincter-clenching moment to stare down the barrel of 6 torpedoes, especially if you're within 30 or 40 centimeters, so you got to hit them.
Yep. And if you're running a Night Lord's fleet, but you haven't put Night Lord Astartes on the bridges, torpedoes are always a weapon that don't care about who's closest. If you aim them correctly, you can always hit who you want.
It's true. And if you do have Night Lords on the ship, may I suggest the gentleman checks out boarding torpedoes. They're real fun,
yes.
And they do hit and run attacks.
It's true. I always forget about boarding torpedoes consistently. Is it 1 hit and run attack per torpedo, or is it 1 for the wave?
1 per torpedo, just like Thunderhawks and everything else. All
right, shit, yeah, you can dump 6 leadership penalties onto a target,
right?
Then turn around and give them the broadside.
Yep, it can be a real nasty time. Nasty time.
Other honorable mentions for a Night Lord fleet with 60 centimeter lances include the Devastation Cruiser, which we talked about in the last episode. It's actually the long range lance cruiser with bays.
Yep. The Styx heavy cruiser, big carrier
the
capacity,
Styx.
has some 60-centimeter weapons and lances, so it can do some Nancy stuff, both sides of the coin.
The murder cruiser, the little brother of the Hades, has 2 prow weapons batteries. Or not weapons batteries, lances. You know what I mean. And that's mostly what we have for the Night Lords today. It feels like a short episode.
But honestly, when we started doing this, we thought 40 minutes was going to be our standard chunk. And
it's
that
true.
is what we're at. So it's not like we shortchanged it.
It's true. Yeah, it's good times. Any other Night Lordy things?
No, don't really have anything.
The light cruisers. Light cruisers aren't really in the Night Lord wheelhouse as far as making use of their Legion trait goes. But strike cruisers are pretty good. Like, if you're going to use Night Lords light cruisers, the strike cruiser is the way to go. It's fast, it's got that 6-up armor, and you can make it into a little Thunderhawk boat. Like, that's all it does, is just dump Thunderhawks onto things and reduce their leadership.
It's true. It's a fun time. Yeah. I do like a good light cruiser. I mean, you know that.
Yeah, I know you do. Stupid Dauntlesses.
So yeah, I think that's all we got going for today. But next time around, we're going to talk about
Blood Angels.
Blood Angels.
I guess.
Yeah.
Blood Angels or whatever else you ask us to talk about, really.
Yeah, unless you got something else
you.
that you're more interested in. Because really, who likes Blood Angels? Ponzi, Team Edward.
Nobody. They're the worst.
They do have a really fun Legion rule, though, and we'll get there.
Yeah, we will get there. You'll probably get a little more insight into what it was like to write Legion rules, because we struggled with the Blood Angels for a really long time.
Struggled mightily. And I will say, we struggled a little bit with the Night Lords, too. Because, at least when I was writing them way back in the day, I thought at first about giving them kind of a Mark of Slaanesh type thing. That, they'd just broadcast torturing people to death, and that would freak you out. But, of course, if you're going to give anybody the Mark of Slaanesh, that goes to the Emperor's Children, and then what do you do? But overall, I'm pretty happy with how they turned out.
I think we did rewrite the Night Lords rules a couple times. I don't even remember what we originally had for them anymore, but
it was
we
something.
ended up with this.
It was something very similar to Emperor's Children, and we were like, this is very similar to Emperor's Children. And we settled on this, which I do like. I've played against a Night Lord's fleet a couple of times, and man, that leadership subtraction is frustrating and crazily good.
So if this was the Lance episode, next episode will be the Battery episode.
True story.
So, until that time, remember, there are monsters between the stars. Good hunting.
Good hunting.
We hold the life power, try not to anger us. Trunks off the fine line, there is death near at hand. We are the dark children, spawn of the incubus. Depths of the nighttime are the lands we command. We hold the life power, try not to anger us. Treads off the fine line, there is death near at hand.
Thanks for listening to another podcast from the Remembrancers Retreat. If you enjoyed this episode, consider leaving a rating on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. You can also find our swag store at teespring.com/stores/RR30K podcast. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter at RR30K podcast. You can follow us on Instagram at Remembrancers_retreat. You can also visit our website, RR30K.com, for podcast updates and the Battlefleet Heresy Compendium. You can also leave us a voicemail for us to play on a future podcast at 1-929-437-3791. That's 1-929-HERESY1. And you can also leave us an email at theremembrancersretreat@gmail.com. Thanks again.